Is somebody typing? There's a lot of keyboard noise. Okay. Are you able to mute everyone except for me? Okay. Okay, so we had quite a bit of feedback, so I just went ahead and muted everyone, and I'll just go through the list and introduce everyone, if that's okay, on everyone's behalf. Okay. Thank you for your patience while I navigate GoToMeeting. We usually use Blackboard Collaborate, so this is actually my second time using GoToMeeting. So if everyone can please use a chat box, that would be great. If you have any questions, I'll keep an eye on the chat box during the presentation. Can everyone confirm that they can hear me okay? Great, thanks Robert. Okay, thanks Mike. Excellent, okay. So it looks like we have about 60% of the RSVPs here. So I'll go, if it's okay with everyone, we'll go ahead and wait another 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
I'm gonna unmute all. Okay, so we're going to try introductions again and hopefully not get as much feedback. So Alexander, thank you for introducing yourself. Colleen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself really quick and your title and if you have any relationships with Indonesia? Okay. Okay, everyone has opted to mute their mic. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did. I unmuted all.
How can she release herself? She's muted.
No, I unmuted.
Oh, yeah.
So we're waiting for...
I think we should just start.
Yeah, okay. So I think we have almost everyone here, so we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, as mentioned, please go ahead and type it into the chat box. So just to start, I'll introduce myself and my director, and then I will introduce Brooke Ross, our presenter for today, and then we'll get started with the presentation. So again, my name is Daeng KHOUPRADIT. I am the International Marketing and Recruitment Coordinator here at Humboldt State University. We're all very happy that you can join us this morning. I have with me my director, Rebecca Brown.
Thanks everybody for joining us. I talked with some of you yesterday, and some of the other ones of you I emailed, and we appreciate your time. And also, I think the context that you all know is that we're having a conversation this morning, which is a prelude to a week from today, a virtual meeting with led by Indonesian Education Partnerships, Brooke Ross. Some of you may know Brooke Ross, and also the CSU is hosting 43 rectors / presidents from Indonesia this coming week. They're going to Long Beach, San Diego, San Francisco, and then they're ending up at like an educational summit in Humboldt. And they've asked to reach out to the CSU for a broader CSU project, and that's why we've been reaching out to you to be able to participate. And so we're hosting this virtual meeting today and on Friday in the spirit of Humboldt being very, very green and low carbon impact. So thank you for your time.
Okay, great. So I'll just give you a brief background on EPTISI. This was sent as an attachment in the invitation. If anyone needs it again or would like it, please email me and I would be happy to forward it on to you. So the delegation EPTISI is the consortium of Indonesian private universities. They have in their membership more than 3,400 universities and colleges, and they comprise 70% of all tertiary education for student enrollment in Indonesia. So as Rebecca mentioned, the delegation is here in California to look for mutually beneficial university partnerships in addition to many other opportunities for collaboration. Presenting today on the opportunities available for the CSU is Humboldt State University's in-country consultant, Mr. Brooke William Ross. In addition to leading the delegation, he's also the managing director for Indonesian Education Partnerships. So Indonesian Education Partnerships, I'm sure Brooke will elaborate, is a team of specialists, international relations, and education consultants whose focus are on building U.S.-Indonesian higher education partnerships. He's been doing this a very long time, and we're very, very grateful to be working with him. And now I just want to read off who is in participation today so far. So we have Alex, Brooke, Christine, Colleen, Mike, and Paul, and Robert. Thank you for joining us today. At the end of this presentation, we will send to you a copy of the presentation, a link for the RSVP for you to join us in the virtual meeting next week with the rectors, and you'll also have my email if you have any additional questions. Yes? Yes, Brooke?
Nope, sorry, not saying anything directly.
Okay, great. So that's all I was going to say, and now I'm going to hand it over to you, and then you can start your presentation.
Have them type any questions. They can tell us if they can hear.
Yeah, and if you have any issues hearing, please let us know in the chat box. Okay. Brooke, I've made you the presenter, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Okay, good. It just took me a moment to figure out how to unmute myself. So thanks everybody for joining today. I look forward to meeting you both virtually and in person. I'm Brooke Williams Ross. I'm actually currently sitting in Jakarta, Indonesia. In about, and it's midnight here right now, in about 12 hours time, we will be heading first to the U.S. Embassy with the delegation, where we're having a farewell there with the ambassador, before heading to the airport in about 15 hours time to fly to California. So we're really excited about this. I'm going to be telling you quite a bit more about the delegation toward the end of this presentation, as well as a little bit about or our organization and some of the ways that we're working with Humboldt and other institutions as well as the delegation that you might be able to engage on. To start, though, I just want to get a sound check if people are or are not unmuted at this point. Alexander, I heard that you said that you had some partnerships already, and actually I think you said also some agents in Indonesia. Could I ask who else on the call also has active relationships in Indonesia? Let's see, are we muted, Daeng?
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes. Go right ahead.
Okay. In Fullerton, we do not have any active partnership.
Okay. Not yet. Good. Well, let's see if we can do that. And I see, Robert, thank you for your message that at San Mateo you have a relationship with Venus University, which is an excellent university, I think, with high student mobility capacity and experience on that. Anyone else on the call would like to share if you have any current relationships? Oh, sorry. Thanks, Robert. San Marcos. Okay. Well, if you do, I look forward to hearing about them as well as perhaps discussing ways where those might be able to go to the next level. Each university, of course, has its own challenges and opportunities. So let me move forward. I think you may be seeing my screen at this point. Daeng, do we have a good visual on my screen at this point? Yes, she types. Good, thank you. All right, so let me move ahead then. Again, today I'm going to focus and really try to do this in about 35 minutes. I welcome questions during each slide and as we go, but we also can have more time for dialogue at the very end so we can get you out of here by the end of the hour. So just real start for those people who haven't been around to Indonesia, I'm putting it right here on the map so we can take a look. It is in Southeast Asia. It comprises 17,000 islands, spanning over 3,000 miles from Sumatra in the very west all the way to Papua in the east. It comprises 2/3 of the island of Borneo, the island of Java, Bali, Sulawesi, Komodo, many, many other islands there. Interestingly, and I think this map actually helps to show it well, it is the largest nation geographically in Southeast Asia. It actually has a population larger than the rest of Southeast Asia combined, and it has an economy larger than the rest of Southeast Asian nations' economies combined. So it's quite significant for many different reasons. So with that, it's the next largest population after the United States with 250 million people and growing rapidly. The economy is also rapidly growing. We've watched just in the last 4 years Indonesia going from the 20th largest economy and then starting to be a new member of the G20 largest economic nations, now the 16th largest. And it's expected, and this is a report that McKinsey put out about a year ago, that it looks to be that Indonesia is on track in their economic growth to be the 7th largest nation economically in the world within another 15 years. So what does this mean in terms of education? Well, it means that it has a lot of people growing economically, seeking economic advantage through international education. So we're seeing many, many international high schools opened, existing, expanding, and opening up. In Jakarta, I recently counted over 300 independent, international-oriented high schools just in this geographic area where I am right now. And we also see this in the tertiary section. The tertiary section is expanding rapidly. Also 4 years ago, it only had 3,400 universities. They've added on 300 new universities just in the past 4 years. It now has 3,700 public and private universities, colleges, and other tertiary institutions. And I think quite significantly, the new presidential administration in Indonesia, they just elected a new president last August. He's just come into, been inaugurated this past October, established as ministers in November. His new administration is moving quickly for focus on international quality workforce development, internationalization of its higher education, and capacity building for the nation. They're really seeing this as one of the major keys for the development of the nation and the continued mobility forward for Indonesia. I'm going to share a little bit here in terms of some of the trends we're seeing in student mobility overall. And this is not specific to the United States or one particular nation that they're going to. But of the students in Indonesia who are studying overseas, we're finding that about 95% of them in our surveys are self-funded. That this is affluent or the upper middle economic segments or the ultra-rich, frankly. So from the upper middle economic segment through the ultra-rich, they are funding themselves. It may be people who are going for short-term programs or long-term programs. Actually, a pretty standard one for the affluent would be to send their child first to American Community College, followed by the four-year institution for the bachelor's, followed by the master's degree before coming back to Indonesia. This is something that we're seeing more and more of. However, it's not necessarily being seen more and more of in the United States. Australia has picked up quite a bit with about 20,000 Indonesian students. That's waxed and waned a little bit recently. The Australian dollar is no longer perceived as such a great value, so we're now seeing Indonesians starting to shift actually quite a bit more to China, among other places, and other Asian nations. Taiwan, Japan are both getting quite a few more Indonesians. Most Indonesians are still going to Australia with about 20,000, followed by Singapore and Malaysia neck and neck with about 12,000 students each. Then China with about 9,000 to 10,000. And that's growing by about 1,000 a year we've been seeing over the past 5 years. The United States is still hovering between 7,000 and 8,000 Indonesian students in tertiary education, and that's been the same level for about the last 7 years. I'll get more on that in U.S. trends in just a little bit. Now, what we're seeing is with this rapidly growing middle class, upper classes, they're wanting the high international education, but to be more accessible for those people who are in the expanding middle class and the upper middle economic segments, affordability and accessibility are always key for them. So having options, and that doesn't necessarily mean a full degree, study abroad options from partner Indonesian universities are more and more in demand both by the students, the parents, and the Indonesian universities. So we're seeing quite a few interesting trends there, and I'll get into more of that detail. We're also seeing strong workforce development needs. And this is actually particularly important this year. Let's see. Yes, I see a question here from Robert. I'll get to that in just a moment. We're seeing, particularly in this year, the ASEAN economic community is opening up in December for a wide range of different economic fields that citizens from the different ASEAN nations, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, can freely take jobs in each other's countries. So there's a large concern and, frankly, I think funding drive in Indonesia in the government as well as in private institutions to be able to build workforce development capacity, to be able to get people internationalized certifications. Short-term certifications are things I'm hearing people talking about quite a bit now because they are concerned that when December comes, that they might not be competitive for their own jobs. when other people from Southeast Asian nations, other Southeast Asian nations who speak better English, who have internationally recognized certifications, are competing for those same positions. So there's a large concern. To Robert's question, who asks that, yes, the 5% of the students there, if 95% are self-funded, 5% government. The data that we've been collecting shows that right now there are about 80,000 Indonesian students studying internationally in tertiary education in any given year, and I think that's expanding. That's actually data from 3 years ago, and as we're collecting more data, I'm seeing that's increasing. I wouldn't be surprised right now if it's past 120,000 Indonesian students studying internationally. So government funding, and that's interesting that you do mention that. I'll get to in just several more slides, some real interesting opportunities that the government is doing to increase the number of people who are also going through government funding. And this is quite significant. So in this figure, 5%, so that might be 5,000 or so students. The largest current funder of that is the Ministry of Education. They have, for the last 7 years, been rolling out a robust scholarship program to send faculty members from Indonesian universities overseas for masters and PhDs, fully funded by the Ministry of Education, up to $40,000, $40,000 to $45,000 per year. So that's one very interesting opportunity that's been there, and they've been funding. Initially it was 1,000 people per year, and they've recently been increasing the new people per year going overseas. The second largest government opportunity that we're seeing right now is a new program that's just been created a year and a half ago from the Ministry of Finance. And this has about $2 billion for this current year, and it should have another $1.7 billion for each additional year as slated in the budget for sending people for masters and PhDs internationally. There are some caveats to that. I'll get into more detail in each of those once we talk about some of the government programs. There are other ministries actually are also sending people. We just helped facilitate a contract with the University of Rhode Island this past year with the Ministry of Fisheries to train 25 people for masters and PhDs, fully funded by the Ministry of Fisheries. One of the most interesting things that Indonesia has done in education funding is they passed a constitutional amendment requiring that the government always spend at least 20% of its national budget on education. And that's across the board: primary education, secondary, and tertiary education, as well as workforce development and training. So with that, what we're seeing is many ministries, not just the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance, but many individual ministries across the board, Ministry of Forestry, mining, fisheries, etc., agriculture, having a much larger budget that they need to spend, allocate and spend each year on training and capacity building. So these are all, I think, some very interesting opportunities. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but can I pause to ask if anyone has questions, because I know I've thrown a lot at you real quick. Okay. If you have a question, type it, speak it. I'm not sure if everyone can verbally get through, but please do ask questions as we go. Okay. For the U.S. specifically, we actually have a very strong history. I see the question from Alex. Is the government funding limited to certain areas of majors? It is, but those areas are very broad. Actually, the Ministry of Education funding, sending Indonesian faculty members for masters or PhDs, and it's primarily PhDs now, is in any subject that any Indonesian university teaches, which is any subject. They need to be a current lecturer. They can be an adjunct, that's fine. They need to be a current lecturer, not necessarily a full professor. They can be an adjunct in a university and being recommended by that university for this. The critical thing that they need, though, is they need their university where they work to have a partnership with your university. So if the partnership exists and then they apply to your university, and their university leadership recommends them to the Ministry of Education. They can be funded for a PhD, in some cases master's, in any field. It's across the board for the Ministry of Education program. For the Ministry of Finance program, that has some limitations, but it's still quite broad. Economics, business, engineering, health, medicine, and I'm sorry, there are a number of other areas, I believe even some in social sciences and religion are included within that. That can be a follow-on, and I think what we'll do is we'll make sure that at next Friday's virtual meeting we have very specific information about those. You can also look up online LPDP. That's the scholarship program, and on their homepage, it's under the Indonesian Ministry of Finance, they list, it's 7 very broad fields that they have there. But that'll be something that we'll be certain to have for you next week, as well as we can do a follow-up if that's something I'm sure that everyone would like to have. So in terms of the U.S.-Indonesia history, the U.S. actually was in a dominant position. For the leadership of Indonesian universities, the U.S. was the primary partner that they were used to when they were students and when they were young faculty. We had relationships going back into the 1960s and 70s, even into the 80s and the 90s. The U.S. was the single top destination worldwide for Indonesian students. However, what we've seen in the last 12 years now, really since September 11th, there were a couple different factors. First was the Asian economic crisis, but U.S. still maintained its pole position until the September 11, 2001. With a lot of the concerns, the visa restrictions, et cetera, the U.S. lost its place, Australia moved in, and the U.S. has never recovered. What we're seeing now is partnerships. As we talk about partnerships, they've shifted to Australia. Australia is the primary player here right now for partnerships, including one of you mentioned Venus as your partner earlier. They have many Australian partnerships and just a few U.S. partnerships. Also East Asia, Taiwan, Japan, China, Singapore, and Malaysia. Those are all very popular destinations now. But Indonesia's education institutions are looking to differentiate, to compete with each other, to be able to have a marketing edge as well as an educational and academic edge on each other through having international partnerships. And this is why they're looking to re-engage with the United States. The U.S. is still considered as having the best education in the world, the best research universities in the world. And this is something that they will say, this is something that they're very aware of, and therefore this is very much still an area of demand. So what we have is an opportunity, and I'm leading this delegation, we're departing tomorrow for California, is APTISI, which is the name of Indonesia's largest consortium, and they have 3,400 institutions, universities, colleges, and other tertiary institutions in their consortium. They're coming next week, and we'll be spending about 9 days in California with a number of very specific meetings, and are expecting and wanting to expand and explore for a partnership with California universities in a wide range of different subjects and models. And I'll get into some of those models in just a moment. Did anyone have a question at this point? Okay, if someone has a question, please do ask away. I'm going to get back to more detail on the APTISI delegation and what we're doing and how you can engage with them in a moment, but let me talk a little bit more about some of the trends that we're seeing in student mobility into the United States, into U.S. universities. As we said, this is actually, I just noticed, this is the IIE Open Doors from a few years ago. I think it's about 3 years old now. So I do need to update that. I was just thinking that before the presentation. But what we still have is it's been hovering around mid 7,000 Indonesian students in the United States for most of this past decade. Now, as we look at some of the trends, what we're finding here is that 2/3 of those are undergraduates. They're going into either short-term programs, undergraduate study abroad programs, associate's degrees, and bachelor's degrees programs. About 1/4 of them are coming back or coming for the first time for graduate degrees, masters and PhDs. And you see a small percentage are coming for very short-term or other non-degree programs. So it is, I think, a very good fit for California state universities in terms of having a large focus on undergraduate programming and master's programming. And I should say the non-degree program, professional development programming that you do very well. What are they studying? Well, this is a slide I'm about to show you here of what Indonesian students are studying in the United States. This is data collected by the U.S. Department of Commerce. What we see is there's a slight differentiation between undergraduates and graduates. Undergraduates, engineering is the #1 field, and that's a wide range of engineering. Petroleum engineering is of large interest here in Indonesia. They're recognizing that has one of the highest salaries in Indonesian companies, or actually American companies operating in Indonesia. So that's one of many fields that are of interest. Computer science along with engineering. And then business, management, economics. And then beyond that, it's really everything. There's students studying photography, film, design, art, fashion, medicine. Now, medical sciences, this is interesting, medical sciences and nursing. To be a doctor, let's see, I just lost presentation here. Here we go, hopefully that's back. Okay, does this look good, everyone? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Medical sciences, to be a doctor in Indonesia, that's done at the bachelor's level. It's a 5-year program at the bachelor's level. So medical sciences that we're seeing are people coming for other degrees within the health services, within the health sector. Same with nursing, of course, that's done at the bachelor's level, and the licensing is here. But the opportunities I'm hearing from the Indonesian universities who would like to have partnerships for students coming for a semester or a year, or to do specific coursework that they might not have, or that will enhance their offerings through partners overseas and in the United States. For graduate students, we kind of see it a little flipped. MBAs becomes the #1. In international business becomes the #1 field that students are going for, followed then by other finance, and then the computer science, engineering, and then other fields. But I think at the graduate programming, we're looking at much more professional fields as opposed to liberal arts fields. Okay. This particular slide I'm sharing with you next, and this is what the last Director General of Higher Education reported to me this past calendar year as their existing priorities. And I say the last Director General because at this moment that position is vacant. There is a new Minister of Higher Education. They're doing a reorganization, and that position is currently vacant. So until there's a new Director General, and I've been meeting with him and get some of his pointers, this is the best that we have for the moment. But what I think is very interesting about this is what he told me his priorities were employee development. And within that, certificates, shorter-term certificates, he was identifying as a major need and interest of the Indonesian government and the Ministry of Education, as well as full degrees in strategic areas. But this was one of the first times this past year that I heard the government saying, in the Ministry of Education, that shorter courses and certificates were a high priority. So I think this is a real opportunity and a great fit for the CSU system, which has professional development, shorter courses and certificates, as well as the full degree programs here. And you see on this, it's quite wide-ranging. These represent the priorities, the health priorities, the economic development priorities. Interesting within this, they're certainly recognizing the needs for climate studies, disaster management, as we're having real issues here in Indonesia, of course, regularly with disasters, but also with sea level rise. And as an island nation, that's a very serious issue. But then education, and that's across the board: teacher education, early childhood education, curriculum development, education of faculty members on both pedagogy, curriculum development, but also research methods. Those are all very much of interest. And then also for the other ministries, they recognize that training in administration and finance are high priorities. So these are some real priority areas of the Ministry of Education, and I would actually say that this reflects the priorities I'm hearing of the current presidential administration as well. Moving on, this next slide shows a number of the different specific fields that we're tracking within industries. This is within the news. This is within needs that we're hearing. I'm an active member of the American Chamber of Commerce and a founding member of the Education Workforce Development Committee. Within that, I also do actively engage with the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and other chambers here in Indonesia. So this is what we're hearing from the chambers, the foreign chambers, the Indonesian chambers, as well as from the media reports, that trainings in specific industries are highly needed. Aviation. This is with a booming economy and a huge population, an island nation. Many more flights are being added each year. New aircraft, new pilots, new ground crews are needed. Everything from air traffic controllers to pilots to the maintenance, repair people, etc. This is a major growth industry and opportunity in Indonesia that is not yet being met within the nation. Mining. The largest mining companies in Indonesia are American companies. And this is everything. This is from tin to gold to zinc to coal, mining and processing. They've just passed laws requiring companies, instead of exporting ore, they need to refine a majority share of the ore before they can export it. And they don't have the people with the capacity for this in Indonesia. So this is a major training opportunity that this year the companies are being forced to build their own smeltering plants and find new employees to be able to run them. So petroleum industry is the next one. This is always a growth industry here, of course, now with the lowering cost of petroleum for the moment. This may cool off slightly, but this has been a growth industry. I'm sure will be a growth industry again. Forestry management, we have Sumatra, Borneo, Papua, many large regions, forestry and forestry sciences and forestry commercialization. The largest pulp and paper company in the world is based right here in Indonesia. And these are significant opportunities for, like Humboldt, for institutions that specialize in forestry management. Infrastructure. This is a major infrastructure and port management. These are actually one combined plank of this new administration, that they are pouring billions of dollars into the budgets to be able to expand rapidly the infrastructure for transportation, for shipping, for port management, for expanding and building new ports across Indonesia. This is crucial for the nation, one of the real areas that's holding back economic growth. And many other industries. So if you have specific industries of interest, I'd invite you to contact me and let me know afterward as well. We have a library of thousands of articles and reports on the economic sector needs in education in Indonesia. Any questions here before I move on? Okay, please do as we go. I'm watching the clock and I want to get toward the end, so I'm going to move a little bit faster because these next few slides really show models of partnerships that I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. But I list these because these are the models that the Indonesian universities who are coming with me tomorrow to California and will be asking about and will be interested in. These are the ones that they are talking about. First, they want to send students to study in America. And they might be thinking of summer short courses to full semesters, to full years. They would love to expand that further into a 2+2 or a 3+1 or 1+1 master's degree. There are, of course, constraints, financial constraints on that, of course. So you do need to be selective and careful about which universities you're partnering with, but even then, this takes work to be able to get the students flowing into your program, no matter how well conceived it might be. this does still take real work. It's much easier for them to go do a study abroad program in Australia, which is 4 hours away, or Singapore, which is an hour and a half away, than to the United States. So there are some perception concerns, even though they think that the quality of American, and California specifically, education is much higher. They have hesitations, but ones that I think we can overcome. But these are interest areas of the rectors and vice rectors, the presidents, vice presidents, and deans of the Indonesian universities who are coming with us this next week. They would like to set up study abroad programs. They'd also will likely be talking about dual degree programs, and part of the reason is the Ministry of Education has told them that for their accreditation standards, they are being asked to establish dual degree programs with international universities. So this is something that they will be asking about. You need to be careful, of course, with this. Dual degrees programs are, as you know, a lot of work, and unless you have viable students who are willing to go into that program, it can be a lot of work that doesn't come to anything. So you need to be careful, selective, and I would be recommending starting with the shorter-term study programs to make sure that there are viable students and interested students that are coming before launching the full dual degree program. Some of these things the Indonesian universities don't fully recognize. They know that they need to have a dual degree program, but they don't necessarily know how viable it will be for their students. Okay. Daeng sends a little point there that CSUs are not allowed to do dual degrees, and I remember we have talked about this. Thank you, Daeng. There are ways, as I understand, in the CSU system that, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. It needs to have additional coursework, so this could be additional programs. One easy way might be if you have a 1-year master's degree. Masters in Indonesia are typically 2 years, so if they're doing 1 year here in Indonesia, and you consider that part of the prerequisites to then go into your 1-year master's program, then they accept back your credit into their program. Then that's a way to do a dual degree. We're meeting the requirements of both systems. And I think there's some other ways to have that to be able to work. Now, they also be very excited about having your courses being delivered in Indonesia, visiting professors, or perhaps a virtual coursework, or frankly, they'd be very interested in working with you or contracting with you for curriculum development to be able to upgrade their curriculum to match your standards. That would be very, very important for them as they're both trying to increase the quality of their education for their students and parents, but also to be able to get a marketing edge against the competition. And of course, they would love to host your students, and there are existing funding mechanisms for this. The Indonesian embassy, the consulates in San Francisco, Los Angeles, the embassy in Jakarta, they have a scholarship program where they will pay the full tuition and give a living stipend for pretty much any of your students who are going for at least 4 months, which is a semester, to Indonesia to study at one of a number of different universities. This funding exists. It's typically, the majority of it is not used each year. On this delegation this week, we will be meeting not only tomorrow with the U.S. Embassy, but we will be meeting with the Consul General in Los Angeles and the Indonesian Consul General in San Francisco and talking about their programs for supporting your students who might want to go to Indonesia for study abroad. They'd also love to host, and by hosting I mean that they would give them an office. They would give them access to the research facilities. They would often even give them housing if you had graduate students or faculty who would like to come and do research based in their university, as well as they'd give you research assistants and students to be able to participate and assist with this. They would be most delighted for this. I should say, as we're talking about research or faculty exchanges, they have funding actually to send through the Ministry of Education, their lecturers to your universities to do sabbaticals from 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, as well as to go for seminars. They have readily available funding to be able to do this. I've helped other Indonesian universities do this at other American universities, including just last month. Visiting researchers, they'd love to host your researchers, not just your graduate students. they actually have funding that they can easily access from the Ministry of Education, smaller amounts, $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, but recurring, say every 6 months or every year, to be able to fund international research partnerships. And then there are other things. USAID, of course, is very active here. I just talked yesterday with the Education Director of USAID in Indonesia. They're doing a rethink with the new ministry of their strategy and hope to, they're doing a number of surveys right now and hope to have a new strategy in terms of what their funding mechanisms are going to be, likely in another 6 months. That's not quite ready yet. And then, of course, the Indonesian government, in their push to be able to get their faculty developed, they have quite a bit of funding to send faculty members, not just for full PhDs, but for single semesters to come in over refresher programs. And then, and this is one that I alluded to earlier, if you develop partnerships with Indonesian universities, that's a critical piece that they need to be able to have their faculty members come to your university for a PhD, in some cases for a master's degrees as well. I have a few other things here. I think there's a large opportunity amongst ministries and state-owned enterprises wanting to send people for degrees. I had mentioned the Ministry of Fisheries contracting with the University of Rhode Island earlier this past year to send 25 people for masters and PhDs. And then I think this is what I'm very excited about. I'm hearing a lot of interest in this here within Indonesia, which is in shorter terms. Could be 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, 4 month certifications and professional development programs, contracts with government, state-owned enterprises, and with industry, as well as with universities here in Indonesia. So those are the things that the Indonesian universities coming here will have on their mind. These are the things that they're feeling that are pressing, the models that they're going to want to be talking about. Could I pause here and ask if you guys have any questions? And then please, you're welcome to speak verbally as well, not just type if you like. Moving on to the next slide then. The delegation coming up. So these are my concluding slides to let you know what's happening with this delegation in this week. APTISI. APTISI is really the acronym for the Indonesian phrase that means the Indonesian Association of Private Higher Education Institutions. This is the largest consortium of Indonesian universities and colleges, 3,400 members, and expanding. Actually, just last year it was 33. This year it's 34. And this is everything. This is from large research universities with bachelor's through PhDs and 70,000 students and multiple campuses to small specialist institutions that might only have 200 students and maybe focus on what you might consider an associate's program or professional certifications at the tertiary level. So this really runs the gamut. And within their consortium, they actually have 70% of all Indonesian tertiary students. It's quite significant. On this particular delegation, we have 41 Indonesian university presidents, vice presidents, and deans coming from 21 different universities. They've contracted with us to organize and lead this delegation. This is their first time as a consortium coming to the United States. This is their 5th delegation. Last year was to Europe. The year before that was China. The year before that was Australia. This is the first time they're coming to California, and they specifically wanted to come, I'm sorry, the first time they went coming to America, and they specifically wanted to come to California. Now, let me tell you a little bit about who we are, since we've been engaged with APTISI to run this delegation. We're actually an Indonesian education consultancy that's based in Indonesia, and we have a history of bridging U.S. and Indonesia higher education partnerships. We've worked for other countries. For example, we've been we had a 2-year contract with the Ministry of Education in New Zealand that recently concluded. We're partnered actively right now with Humboldt State University, as well as with this APTISI consortium of universities for helping to bridge partnerships. We are officially licensed in Indonesia for doing exactly this, and we have close relationships with Indonesian universities, governments, decision makers, as well as with the U.S. Embassy, U.S. Department of Commerce, and others. Our focus is to help Indonesia develop through education. And just to share with you a little bit about our core team, and you'll be meeting 3 of these people in next week's program. Myself, of course, Brooke Ross, Stan Harsha. He'll be joining this entire delegation, and he is new to our team. He's just retired as a U.S. diplomat. Most recently, he was the U.S. Consul General in Sumatra. He's done 4 tours as a senior U.S. diplomat in Indonesia. He's also been on the one of the leaders of the Fulbright Commission worldwide for the State Department. Devi Diana will not be here this week, but I wanted to let you know that we actually have a Vice Rector from Indonesian University, Vice Rector for Collaboration. She is our Indonesia Partnerships Manager. So as you're engaging on the Indonesia side, you'll be engaging with me and with her, should you be coming to Indonesia. Bart Ryan, he's based in the United States and he did his PhD from Harvard in Indonesia, but currently he is a distance education specialist working closely with us to help support Humboldt and CSU interests. So that's most of what I have time for in this 1 hour that I hope would be of a little bit of value for you to have in mind before joining the virtual meeting next week with the delegation. Could I just stop here and generally ask, before we get into talking about how you can join the delegation? Yes, exactly, what your questions might be, and I see a question from Robert, thank you. With the webinar format next week, how might those who would not be represented by campus visits share their information? You know, Robert, I think that's excellent. We would very much like to have that. If there's information that you can, one, be sending me, I will be making sure that each of the delegates get your printed or your electronic information. But I know that's not really your question. Your question is, how will we be sharing? So can I ask Daeng and Rebecca, are you still on the call, and would you be able to illuminate us in terms of the format for the virtual meeting next week from 1 to 3 on Friday?
This is Rebecca up at Humboldt. Hey, everybody. The question was, what will the webinar format be next week, and how might you represented share their information? So, Brooke, I'm happy to talk with you about this, but I'll give you my initial thought. Well, first off, on the format is our plan is to have the rectors present, of course, and Brooke and his team, and our core team here at Humboldt. Leo will be here from the Chancellor's Office. Our plan is to have Leo give a presentation of the CSU as a whole and talk about, you know, some of the mission of the CSU, etc. And then we'll have an opportunity for Brooke to further put more detail to his presentation this morning. We'll have questions and answers. I think the best thing to do so that we have consistent information would be for us to send out to the team, to the CSU, kind of a questionnaire that we can, and you guys can get the information back to us, and we can collate. That way we have consistency in the formatting. And Brooke, you're going to be quite busy the next week, and so we can try to gather that and put that together and facilitate that.
Great, thank you. Would there be a chance, Rebecca, for the individual campuses to be able to introduce and share a little bit about their university during the Illuminate virtual meeting?
Yes, absolutely. We have the meeting is specifically set for 2 hours. I know that seems a little long, but we'll basically have an hour and a half for you, Brooke, to give some overview. There may well be some people joining us that are not on the call today, but I do believe this is being recorded, and we're going to be sending it to everybody. And of course, the attachments that we've sent out, it has quite a lot of useful information. If you guys haven't looked at it, I encourage you to do so. So yes, absolutely, information to share. It's frankly going to depend on how many universities are on the call, but I would say we'd probably have an hour of the time for sharing. Brooke, I'm going to leave it up to you as far as what translations would be needed, etc.
Yeah, that's right, good. So we will have people to be able to translate for you. There are ways that we could do that. We could have that be simultaneously translated while you're speaking and have us muted so that's not interrupting you, but so that the Indonesian delegation here. Most of the Indonesians speak very good English. There are just a few who will need some assistance. But to say, I think the purpose of next week's call is not to reiterate what I just went through. Today we went through these slides, so you have this, so we don't need to waste your time next week going through all the same detail. I'll probably touch on a little bit of it for those who are not on today's call, but most of next week's call will be on your institutions, the CSU system overall, their institutions, and being able to have dialogue with the institutions. So I would encourage you to be able to come and share about your institution. If you have perhaps a couple slides or other information that you would like us to either show on a screen or for us to distribute to them during that meeting, we'd be very happy to do that. So for the Illuminate meeting, we want to now take it to the next step. We've given you the introduction here in terms of the opportunities in Indonesia and what they're coming for. We want you to be able to start making contacts. We will be giving you their contact information after the meeting. We will be encouraging you to follow up on some of the interests and explore more. We're currently in the process of finalizing a survey. I have it from most of their universities on their partnership interests. There are a few more that haven't responded that I'll be hunting down tomorrow as we're getting on the airplane and seeing if I can collect that so we can have more depth of information on their ranges of interests and capacities and experiences to be able to share with you. But again, we look at this, this is just the very first step. So we'd encourage you, please come next week, virtually meet with them. You'll be able to see them. You'll be able to have some dialogue with them during this 2-hour virtual meeting hosted by Humboldt. If you happen to be in the area, and I'm thinking about Sonoma, I know you're not terribly far, because we're driving through Sonoma on our way there on Thursday, we'd certainly welcome you to come in person if that was convenient for you. It's probably not conveniently imagined for most people. So if you did come, then we'd welcome you to the full day of programs that Humboldt State University is hosting. We're having meetings in the mornings, we're having a lunch, we're having the Illuminate virtual meeting in the afternoon, and then follow-on meetings where you can have much greater depth of individual dialogue with the Indonesian university presidents, vice presidents, deans, and SIOs who are attending.
Great. And I'm sorry, we wanted to add something else as well. So for those who are interested in participating in the virtual meeting next Friday, if you would like, we would be happy to take, if you want to submit 3 or 4 slides about your institution, you can, when introducing yourself, we can put that up on the screen while you speak. So we can put it all together and, I'm sorry?
We'd need it by Thursday.
Oh yeah, of course we would need it by next Thursday, but if you wanted to send that to us, we would be happy to put it together so that while you're introducing yourself, we could share a couple of slides about your school, as one of the core objectives of this is to introduce not only the CSU, but to highlight each and every one of the schools to the visiting rectors.
And this is Rebecca. I would just add, if you could get us to it maybe by Thursday morning, because the delegation will be coming in here Thursday afternoon for a dinner and then all day Friday. And I wanted to just say that, as all of you know, it takes much longer to get international stuff done than you want it to or that you think it will. So this has come together a little bit later than we had anticipated. I would second Brooke's comment. If anybody can get up here, you're more than welcome. Contact us. We can tell you where they're staying, give you hotel information. But I realize that it's that would have been probably good to hear about 2 weeks ago. So. But I think we're still making a lot of progress, and as Brooke said, this is an opening dialogue, and so thanks, everybody.
If I could, and thank you both, Rebecca and Daeng, for that. As a final slide, after next Friday's event, of course, there are further steps. if there's anything that we can do, that I can do, that our team at Indonesia Education Partnerships can do for you, please do let us know. At present, we're trying to collect information on the range of different professional development and short-term courses that you might have available, so we can include that in our discussion with the Indonesian government and other entities. Likely in September, it could be September, it could be October, this is in discussion right now with the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service, we will be running a delegation of U.S. universities to Indonesia. So this could be a reciprocal visit for you to come back. We'll likely be visiting, including all of the universities that are coming to California. We'll be invited to the programs. We'll have conferences as well as campus visits. We'd love for you to do that. And then finally, should you want to come at some point to Indonesia individually, I think that's a great way to both follow up and define who might be most appropriate matches and move forward. Should we be able to assist you or help point you in the right direction for all of those, please do let us know. Yes, Robert writes there's an effort by U.S. Foreign Commercial Service, Study California, to do a visit. We actually have been having some virtual, we meaning Indonesia Education Partnerships, we've been having some calls and Skype conferences with the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service and Study California. This is something that we're very excited that we're seeing advancing and are working to help advance here in Indonesia. We do work very closely with the Foreign Commercial Service here in Indonesia. In fact, they've assisted us with a couple of our meetings that we have next week, and we're already working on planning with them for bringing U.S. universities here to Indonesia. So that's all I have, and I'm going to say terima kasih, thank you very much, and certainly we're just past a few minutes past the hour, but if you have any questions, I will stay on long as anyone might like. Well, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will be sending a copy of this recording this afternoon with a copy of the presentation, and feel free to contact me if anyone has any